Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Lord Premanandi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yasodanandana Prajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Parivrajakacharya, Ashtatar Satashila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Kota Vaishnavrinda ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki, Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda ki, Shri to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Can we make it full screen? Yes. Where's the white box? It's here. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Wonderful to be with you all again this evening. This evening we'll be continuing with the readings of Sri Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So hopefully Rasikananda Prabhu, are you there? If we can put the verse on the screen, if possible, please, Prabhu. This is the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, text number 43. And this is quite a famous verse, which Srila Prabhupada refers to many times. Now, we have to make sure our guests, devotees can read it, because the pictures appear to be in the screen. I don't know how they see it.
They should be able to see just the entire share screen, Maharaj.
And they see the pictures also?
The pictures of?
Themselves.
No, yes, of course.
They can, but then they may not be able to see the screen because it kind of goes over.
Someone is not muted.
Somebody's not muted?
No, they have been muted.
Hare Krishna. So please repeat. Naivor Vijay Paraduratyaya Vaitaranyas Sadvirya Gaya Namahamita Magna Chitaha Shoche Tato Vimukacheta Sa Indriyata Maya Sukaya Param Udvahato Vimudhan. Now we repeat one line at a time. Naivo Vijay Paraduratyaya Vaitaranyas Tradvirya Gaya Namahamrita Magna Chitaha Shoche Tato Vimukacheta Sa Indriyato Maya Sukaya Param Udvahato Vimudhan. I'm going to go through the word for word. So repeat one word at a time. Na, not. Eva, certainly. Udvijay, I am disturbed or afraid. Para, O Supreme. Duratyaya, insurmountable or very difficult to cross. Vaitaranyaha, of the Vaitarani, the river of the material world. Tatvirya, of your Lordship's glories and activities. Gayana, from chanting or distributing. Mahamrita, in the great ocean of nectarian spiritual bliss. Magna Chitaha, whose consciousness is absorbed. Shoche, I am simply lamenting. Tataha, from that. Vimukachetasaha, the fools and rascals who are bereft of Krishna consciousness. Indriya Artha, in sense gratification. Maya Sukaya, for temporary, illusory happiness. Param, the false burden or responsibility of maintaining one's family, society and nation, and elaborate arrangements for that purpose. Udvahataha, who are lifting by making grand plans for this arrangement. Vimudan, although all of them are nothing but fools and rascals, I am thinking of them also. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and the rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I'm simply concerned with love for them. Report. Throughout the entire world, everyone is making big plans to adjust the miseries of the material world. And this is true at present, in the past, and in the future. Nonetheless, although they make elaborate political, social, and cultural plans, Is there any way of telling who wants to come online? Maybe some in the waiting room. I don't know. Nonetheless, although they make elaborate political, social, and cultural plans, they have all been described herein as vimudha, fools. The material world has been described in Bhagavad Gita as dukkhalayam shashvatam, temporary and miserable. But these fools are trying to turn the material world into sukhalayam, a place of happiness, not knowing how everything acts by the arrangement of material nature, which works in her own way. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. There is a plan for material nature, personally known as Durga, to punish the demons. Although the asuras, the godless demons, struggle for existence, they are directly attacked by the goddess Durga with 10 hands with different types of weapons to punish them. She is carried by her lion carrier, or the modes of passion and ignorance. Everyone struggles very hard to fight through the modes of passion and ignorance and conquer material nature. But at the end, everyone is vanquished by nature's laws. There is a river known as Vaitarani between the material and spiritual worlds, and one must cross this river to reach the other side, or the spiritual world. This is an extremely difficult task. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Daihi esha gunamayi mama maya daratyaya. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. The same word, daratyaya, meaning very difficult, is used here. Therefore, one cannot surpass the stringent laws of material nature, except by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, although all materialists are baffled in their plans, they try again and again to become happy in this material world. Therefore, they have been described as vimudha, first-class fools. As for Prahlad Maharaj, he was not at all unhappy, for although he was in the material world, he was full of Krishna consciousness. Those who are Krishna conscious, trying to serve the Lord, are not unhappy, whereas one who has no assets in Krishna consciousness and is struggling for existence is not only foolish, but extremely unhappy also. Prahlad Maharaj was happy and unhappy simultaneously. He felt happiness and transcendental bliss because of his being Krishna conscious. Yet he felt great unhappiness for the fools and the rascals who make elaborate plans to be happy in this material world. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I might be having a problem because I was going to read from my computer, but that means I can't do it, doesn't it?
You can Maharaj.
Then we won't be able to see the screen. Huh? Oh, you can do like that, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm not going to do it now, so we can go back to the full screen. Okay. So we're 2 days away from the appearance day of Lord Nrsingadev. Very auspicious day in our calendar. Prabhupada considered amongst the 4 most important festivals on our annual calendar. And we have also tomorrow, Tuesday, we probably won't be together, but tomorrow is the very auspicious event. Inauspicious in one sense, because we lost the association many, many years ago of His Grace, Father Janananda Prabhu, one of the dearmost disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who left the world a few months before Srila Prabhupada. Well, that's going back 1977. Tomorrow is the day which we honor the day that he departed the world. And Srila Prabhupada did say that throughout the whole of ISKCON we should put aside this day for remembering Janananda Prabhu, who rendered such incredible service to Srila Prabhupada and even today to the mission of Srila Prabhupada by establishing firmly the very great importance of the Rath Yatra festival, as well as a lifetime. Of course, he's with Prabhupada for 10 years as a disciple. 67 he joined in San Francisco. And for 10 years he, without any, you could say, slight interference of any kind, completely, fully absorbed in pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And like this verse, which we've just read from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he was also fearless. We understand from Prabhupada's purport and from everywhere throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam how fear is the inseparable emotion, you could say. Is there any way of telling if anyone's in the waiting room? Because maybe there's no screen. No. You better not click.
This is what
Okay.
you see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, yes, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see many examples of fearless devotees who were faced with great challenges, difficulties. We see in our own ISKCON so many times devotees who've shown this wonderful example, which Prahlad Maharaj is demonstrating here. They're fearless, not afraid of the material energy exactly. Why? Because they're absorbed. If we're not absorbed in Krishna consciousness, there's bound to be an element of fear. Narayana Paraksavena Kashtani Bibiti Narakanam Svaga Apavaga Narakeshu Apitulata Darshinapa. Very interesting pastime in the Bhagavatam 6th canto. We see how Mother Parvati, when she was consorting with her Lord Shiva, in the forest, and when that king Chitraketu one day came by, and he laughed when he saw that Parvati was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva. And Lord, in front with so many great sages were assembled there, and there was Parvati sitting on his lap, and the Lord is caressing her. And he laughed. She misunderstood the reason for his laughing. And she cursed him, that maybe because you have laughed in this way, you have been offensive, therefore you would take birth as a demon. King Chitraketu in no way tried to counteract that curse. In fact, he accepted that curse as the blessings, the mercy of Parvati. And he spoke very fine philosophy. We all receive whatever we do in this world. We make our plans or we don't make our plans. We do as we wish to a certain extent, whatever we try, but ultimately we get what we're destined. And he was completely undisturbed. He in no way tried to counter it or even asked to be relieved from it. Parvati was a little surprised to see his behavior. She expected some reaction. And her husband explained this verse, Narayana Paraksavena Katasyan Vivati. Those who are actually devoted to the lotus feet of the Lord, they have no fear whatsoever in this world. They don't fear going to heaven or hell. They don't have any fear whatsoever because they're fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the only shelter we have in this world. Prahlad Maharaj had taken complete shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev. And he had no fear of Hiranyakashipu. Incredible, he's a small boy, a few years old, and this Hiranyakashipu is a giant demon. He's made all sorts of plans. He made plans to kill Prahlad Maharaj, plans to conquer the universe. So many plans for his sense gratification. But he was afraid of Prahlad, in one sense, because he couldn't conquer over. As long as there's something we can't conquer, we may be afraid, whether it's some form of fear, whether it's a person, whether it's a nation, whether it's material nature, whether it's death, whatever it may be, fear is there because we can't conquer it. And ultimately in this material world, as Prabhupada says in the purport, this material energy is very difficult to conquer. No one can conquer it. Krishna's energy. We are very, very small. But if we take shelter of the great, take shelter of the supreme lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then we're protected from the effects of the material nature. Fear, anxiety, etc. are material effects in this world, which everybody is basically conquered by. The pure devotee is not conquered by fear. He's not conquered by death. Prabhupada, or the verse actually mentions in the verse, this river, the Vaitarani, this river which is said to be the junction between the material and spiritual worlds, although generally it's described as the river which surrounds Yamaloka. When Ravana was making a big plan to conquer the universe, he actually crossed over that river to the abode of Yamaraj. That river is described in the Bhagavatam as a very, very terrible place, where persons who are materially absorbed, they have to enter into that river before they receive the judgment of Yamaraj. Prabhupada is mentioning here how the fools and the demons, etc., this material world is so absorbed in their material lives, not realizing there's anything, no reaction, no future life. But the reaction for that, all kinds of material activities, one has to experience this Vaitarani river. And it's not a very nice place. It's described as full of stool and urine and blood and pus and bones and all sorts of things, which actually are within our own body. It's incredible. We don't consider that. But our own body, which we hold so dear, be it our families, be it our own, be it others, our lovers, our family members, is actually a bag full of these various elements. Isn't it incredible? We don't see that very river is right there inside our own skin, full of bones and blood and hairs and stool, mucus and pus and so many things. But we're living in that. We just can't see it. This is the illusion of the material world. So a pure devotee, one who's taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, he's not bewildered by this. He understands this situation. He's not attached. It's incredible how we're so attached to this material body. And this is basically the immediate cause of our fear, because we have to lose this material body. As soon as the combination within it becomes a little imbalanced, a little distressful, we become in great anxiety. Generally speaking, just as naturally people are now in most cases, in anxiety for one reason or another because of the present situation of the world which we're in. There is no solution. They make big plans to try to counteract it. As we'll read in a second how Kamsa made plans. Kamsa was very afraid of Krishna. In one sense, we're all afraid of Krishna, because Krishna means, what does it mean? It means we have to take shelter or we oppose. Most people don't have any particular consciousness of Krishna whatsoever. They're just oblivious to his existence. They're also oblivious to their own existence, basically speaking. In other words, just like when we're dreaming at night, we're unconscious of our actual situation or the situation around us, completely oblivious to what's going on. And it takes a while, we wake up and we become conscious. It's like that in the material world. People are more or less unaware of what is really happening. We're only seeing the effects on the screen of our minds of the material combination of the material modes of nature and so on and so forth. We don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes, just like we see the skin, but we don't see beyond it. We see the crust of the earth, but we hardly see beyond it. We see a little thing in the material universe, but we can hardly see much. Our actual ability to see what's going on is very shallow, extremely shallow. And so many people have practically no consciousness of that, although we talk about my body, my mind, but rarely do we really go deeply into who is the me that is saying my. We identify the me with the my. This is the disease of the material world, this me and mine. And as long as we're in this platform of thinking in terms of me and mine in the material sense of the term, then we have to experience the effects of being influenced by Durga Devi. We're under her control. Just like in any country, there's a prison house, and all the criminals are placed in the prison under the direction of the prison warder. Durga Devi is like a prison warder acting on behalf of Krishna. Not, say, she's reciprocating with the living entities according to their activities. Her dealings with them is not partial, it's according to how they reciprocate with Krishna's energy. And similarly, the pure devotees of the Lord, their desire is that we cooperate with the Supreme Lord. As a living entity is, has a relationship with Durga Devi and accordingly is being punished or rewarded. Similarly, if we cooperate with the supreme will of the Lord, then we can gain release. As a prisoner can gain release from the prison if he cooperates with the law of the land. So if we cooperate, that law of the land, the law of God comes into this world in the form of pure devotees, in the form of scriptures. And if we cooperate with the Lord in this way, then we can gradually get release. Our term in this material world will be terminated. This is the special mercy of the pure devotees of the Lord who bring this opportunity, just like Prahlad Maharaj is giving us the opportunity. Now we're associating with him, hearing his prayers. And he's full of compassion. His desire is to see that the living entity, not just for himself, he has nothing to gain. The devotee has already achieved the greatest objective of life. He's absorbed in devotional service to Krishna, the perfection of living, of existence. And his fear or his anxiety, as Prabhupada says, he's happy because he's absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Real happiness is when we're in contact with Krishna. In the material world, the happiness is a mere reflection. It may look like happiness, but it has no real depth, because as soon as the object which causes the apparent happiness is changed or removed, then the apparent happiness is also taken away. It's also removed. Time takes everything away. The happiness is simply a reflection. Not only that, but much of the time we don't even experience happiness. Even in this dreamlike state, we experience stress or distress or grief or anxiety or fear, whatever it may be. The nature of being separated from Krishna as a child, separated from its parent. It's very hard to satisfy a child separated from its parent. Maybe eventually it gets used to it. It becomes familiar with the situation, but in reality, it is not satisfied until reconnected with his mother or father. Prabhupada sometimes gives the example of a man who's had another person standing on their foot for so long. Imagine somebody standing on our foot for so long. You get used to it as a normal situation. It's not a normal situation, it's an abnormal situation. But after a long time, we accept that's our norm. And when they take their foot off, there's a tremendous relief. We may think that they're merely when they're taking their foot off of our foot, that is success. But it's not really. It's just a normal situation. But the real business of, or the real happiness of the foot was when the foot begins to operate, begins to act as a foot, begins to walk. So the living entities in this world, we're like that. We're under the control of Durga Devi, and we know nothing else. We accept the happiness and distress of this world, and we're busy making plans to avoid the distress and increase the happiness. Plans, we have planning commissions, governments are making plans, individuals are making plans, societies are making plans, everyone's making plans in this world. We're all plan makers, trying to adjust things to our satisfaction. But nothing is successful, no matter how great the plan is, it is eventually destroyed or defeated. Everyone is defeated in this material world. Cannot avoid being defeated. But we try everything we can, whether it's conquest of nature, whether it's conquest over birth and death, whether it's conquest over other living entities, over our minds, whatever it may be, everyone is defeated. No one can conquer over it. Just like one time there was this science convention in Germany, back in the 50s or the early 60s. The scientists were claiming, and that the name of this convention was Man's Conquest Over Nature. And scientists were supposed to be coming in from America and from Asia and different parts of the world for this convention. But unfortunately, the convention was cancelled. And the sign was put up, or the notice was sent out, convention cancelled due to circumstances beyond our control. There was a blizzard, snow blizzard, and the convention could not be held. We may think we're very great, but we're not. We can't. Only if the Lord allows do we have a certain element of control over material nature. But the real control is when we take shelter of the controller of this material nature. When we take shelter of Krishna, just like a child when it takes shelter of its family, its parents, or when a citizen takes shelter of the country, we feel protected. Although the amount of protection is not guaranteed, because the object of our shelter is atmasanyasva satsati. It is also fallible. We're taking shelter of fallible soldiers in this material world, in the form of our body, in the form of our nation, the form of our society, our friends, our family, and so many other arrangements there which we take shelter of. But there is no shelter in this material world. The only shelter, at least the only shelter from fear, the only shelter from death, is to take shelter of the deathless. Take shelter of those who've conquered over death, or the controller of death, Lord Sri Krishna. By taking shelter of the Lord, or taking shelter of his pure devotees, one is released from the control of Durga Devi, and consequently released of fear. And also, we generally see that in this world, when somebody has suffered, then very often, hopefully, if they become cured, they feel for the suffering of others who have a similar experience. So devotees of the Lord, having once suffered particularly, and being released from the causes of suffering, this is another aspect of happiness. Although temporarily we may have good qualities, relatively speaking, we may feel happy, etc., etc. The causes of suffering are there. The causes of suffering are merely that we're identifying ourselves as the enjoyer of this world, and we may be reaping good reactions, and thus we may feel some happiness right now. But we're engaged in activities which will cause our own distress in the future births and deaths. So the devotees of the Lord, they are trying to release us of this, not just release us of suffering within it, but to release us from the causes of suffering. That's the essential, purpose of their teaching in terms of our relationship with the material world, at least. Not just to release us from the causes of suffering, but to connect us with the source of the reservoir of pleasure. So we do not have to come back. Krishna says, once having returned to that spiritual realm, one never comes back to this material world. Because we have no interest anymore in the reflection or the dreamlike state, having experienced the reality, once having experienced a higher taste. By experiencing a higher taste, we lose attraction for the lower taste. It's not possible otherwise. We may know that this world is a place of suffering, but even if we get liberated, even if we get freed from the material world, without taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, in 10th canto it is explained, that even if we do get freed from this material birth and death, this world of duality, the modes of nature, if we do not get shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, then we will again re-enter into this material world. The living entity must have shelter somewhere. We can't just take shelter in the sky. We have to take shelter of something which can give shelter. In the material world, it's, you can say, not a very satisfying shelter. The living entity takes shelter within this material world, but the real shelter is at the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the only shelter which will bring firm or full satisfaction to the living entity. No other. So this process of Krishna consciousness, which Prahlad Maharaj is here literally demonstrating by his very, not just by his prayers, but how he's relating with the material energy. Personified. Hiranyakashipu is like material sense gratification personified. His plans are all about conquering the material world and enjoying his senses. There is practically no limit to his desire to enjoy his senses, practically speaking. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, his personality, same personality, but in different forms, are manifestations of this. We're all, in some ways, like little Hiranyakashipus in this world, trying to conquer over others, trying to influence others, trying to enjoy the energies around us, trying to deny there's a supreme controller, we will conquer, and making allegiances with people who maybe assist us in our endeavors, and so on and so forth. So we see in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains the divine and the demoniac nature, how they're always planning, my enemy is being killed, and I will soon kill my other enemies. I will be successful. I will give charity. I will conquer over. I will be happy. I will enjoy. On and on we go, making plans. Don't worry. You vote for us, and we will make you happy. We will protect you. We will reduce your taxes. We will increase your pleasure. We will do this and that. We will give more benefits. On and on they go. All kinds of plans to try to enjoy this world. But none of them, they're all defeated. Every plan is defeated eventually. The only thing which is not defeated, if we take shelter of the undefeatable Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how to take shelter, well, Prahlad Maharaj is teaching us how to take shelter in his various forms, even when he was being tortured, when Hiranyakashipu was so fried with Prahlad, and the way Prahlad was reacting to he was fearless. I mean, we can't imagine how powerful a personality Hiranyakashipu was. And Prahlad, as a small boy, was fearless, absolutely fearless. He was, sometimes when we're put in a difficult situation, we may even hide. We may not be able to say what we understand is the truth, knowing that there's going to be some repercussion from the other person. Try to cover it over sometimes, but he was fearless. He just went straight at his father. Just gave it to him. Straight on, my demon daddy. Fools like you are busy making all these various plans to enjoy this material world, but you don't know who your enemy is. Your enemy. You're thinking I'm your enemy or someone else is your enemy. Don't realize your own mind is your enemy. He's teaching him. He said you're blind, fool, natevidu svarta gatimi vishnu, darasha yevati artamanina. In this world, people are blind, completely blind, following the blind. Matirna Krishna paratoksatova mitogi padyetagi havidana. Going, telling his father that, in this world, Matirna Krishna, nobody, anyone who's attached to this sense gratification, they cannot. There's no way that they can understand this truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their own endeavor, whatever it may be, because they're too much attached to the objects of the sense gratification of the senses, chewing the chewed over and over again. Cannot understand. He was fearless. When his father asked him, what is the most wonderful thing you've heard? What did he answer? The most wonderful thing I've heard nothing of any use in the school, but the most wonderful knowledge that I've heard is to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Arshanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedam. To hear, chant, remember, worship, pray to, and so on. Befriend, serve, take shelter, fully surrender to the personality of Godhead. This Hiranyakashipu was completely outraged. He tried everything he could to kill his son. But his son was fearless because he took shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, chanting the Mahamantra or chanting the names of God. He may have been chanting a different mantra, but chanting the names of the Lord. This is in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam. We see the sages of Naimisharanya say this is the only fearless way, by taking shelter of the holy name of the Lord, which is feared by fear personified. In this way, we can cross over that great river, Vaitarani River, and cross over to the spiritual world, cross beyond this material world. As long as we're still absorbed in the material world, how can we truly help others? It's like if we're in a quicksand. A quicksand is like mud in which when you go, you sink down, down, down. There's no way you can get out on one's own. But if someone helps us out, someone who's not in the mud helps us, they may be able to pull us out if we allow them to. Sometimes we don't want to get out. But if we take shelter of somebody who's also in the mud, in the quicksand, he may be very nice. They may look nice. We may like them. And they may be a little bit better situated than we are. But we're both in the mud and we're both sinking into the material world. We have to take shelter of somebody who's not in the material world. That's a great fortune that Srila Prabhupada has brought this lifeline to all of us in the form of bhakti, devotional service, which we can take shelter of that lifeline. Take shelter of the holy name. Take shelter of devotional service. Take shelter of devotees. This way, by the mercy, because that line is the line to Krishna. That's the line which connects us to Krishna. If we take shelter of that line, we will not be dragged into this material world. The art is to keep engaged always in hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping. We know that we can, but we don't always take shelter of devotional service, and then we feel the effects of the material energy. That is also Krishna's mercy, because it reminds us what happens if we don't take shelter of devotional service. Everything is there. Krishna is reminding us. Durga Devi is reminding us. Maya is reminding us of what happens. Those who have a little knowledge, they have a little bit of understanding of that. In one sense, they're very fortunate, although they may not be experiencing the true happiness of pure devotional service. They know that the happiness of this material world is actually a source of distress. Yehi samspashaja bhoga dukhi yonya evite, Krishna tells Arjuna. But those are actually intelligent. They don't take pleasure in the objects of the sense gratification of this material because they know that such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and thus they do not delight in them. They take shelter of the happiness of devotional service. Pure devotional service is the, we can see in the Nectar of Devotion how Sukhada, how it is the actual platform of real happiness, true happiness, because it's on the platform of spirit, spiritual, that which cannot be stopped, is eternal. The happiness of pure devotional service is eternal, whereas the happiness of the material happiness is only a flickering, chapala shuka, flickering happiness. Comes and goes. Here 1 minute, gone the next. We try to take shelter of those pure devotees and take shelter of Sri Prahlad Maharaj's wonderful prayers by hearing these prayers of Prahlad, and try to make, Prabhupada says, how do we stop making plans to enjoy our senses? As long as we're identifying with this body, seeing ourselves in the center, we're always making plans, one form or another. We have to try to make plans. How, Prabhupada says, how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to spread this message all over the world. Prabhupada writes, this is the best way to conquer our senses. Instead of making plans to protect ourselves or to try to enjoy this world, let us make plans to chant the holy name of Krishna purely, or to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere, to distribute prasadam, to improve our service. In other words, plans to become absorbed in the ninefold process of devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, serving, befriending, etc. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we make plans in that direction, this will free us from the sources of suffering in this material world, and we will easily be able to cross over by the mercy of Krishna. On our own, we cannot cross that great river, that Baitarani river. It is not possible. Even to conquer our minds, Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj say, is impossible to do on our own. Only one who takes shelter. We have to pray, they say. It is impossible for the living entity to individually conquer over the illusion or the of inattention. Even when chanting Hare Krishna, our mind is wandering. It's impossible for the individual living entity to conquer over that wandering mind, only if we take shelter of Krishna. Pray. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, therefore we should fervently pray to the Lord to give us that strength so we can cross over this ocean of material existence, cross beyond this inattention, this tendency to be drawn to the material objects or different pictures which we see in our mind, different thoughts which come up in our mind, different objects of sense enjoyment, etc. To develop that attraction towards Krishna through practicing devotion service by the mercy of Krishna, we can become absorbed in remembering Krishna, as Prahlad Maharaj was, unless he wasn't at all afraid, even when he was put into terribly dangerous, torturous situations by his father, endeavoring to kill him in so many different ways. And we're in the same basic situation. We may not know how we're going to be killed, but we're all going to be killed one day, whether it's by this virus or that virus or this thing or that thing. Every one of us is going to be faced with it one day. So we need to prepare ourselves. And this is a golden opportunity now to begin to prepare ourselves so we're ready when that time comes. Not that we're like, sometimes we had an example in Christchurch, we had one cockatoo who used to say, Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Every time anyone would come in, we'd chant the name of Krishna. When the time of death come, he was walking. Of course, he had benefit from chanting Haribol, no doubt about that, living in the temple. We shouldn't be like that. We should be consciously practicing to remember Krishna, knowing that at every step, every step there is danger in this world. And those who take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, those who take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, this whole material ocean, this whole material world of birth and death becomes very easy to cross beyond. It becomes just like the water in a calf's hoof print. You can easily step over it. Taking shelter of the pure devotees, taking shelter, like Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charanaravinda. His name, very name, Abhay Char, fearless. He was fearless. We were reading today the final epilogue of Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, book by Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. How nicely, at the very end there, he's quoting one of Prabhupada's godbrother, Jati Shekhar, who's saying, he was saying, my spiritual master was like a lion. Your spiritual master was also a lion. Lions are fearless in the jungle. And he said, you should also be like a lion and preach this Krishna consciousness. Well, we may not be like a lion. We may still be a little bit fearful. But if we take shelter of the lion, just like the cub, everyone's afraid of the lion, but the cub is not afraid of the lion. And neither is the lion. And the lion treats the cub with love. So when we take shelter in this material world, we've been hearing how living entities are neglected by the Lord. It's not exactly neglected. Krishna is reciprocating with us accordingly. And we don't want to be with him. We don't want to reciprocate with him. So he's simply reciprocating with us. Okay, you don't want to be with me. All right, go in the material world. So in that sense, he's neglecting us. We could have a loving relationship with Krishna, but in this world, we're trying to have loving relationships with other living entities. So Krishna's there, still watching us, but in one sense, he's neglecting us. But with his dear devotees, he doesn't. He pays special attention to his devotees. So one who becomes a devotee of his devotee is most dear to Krishna, most dear. So let us try to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada and take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's devotees. In this way, we can be protected, become fearless, become happy in this world, and at the same time, the mood of Srila Prabhupada to be compassionate to other living entities. We're not callous, we just stand by, their hard luck or whatever. No, the devotee, he feels great compassion, even towards his enemy, even towards persons who are causing him harm. Just like Prahlad, his father was trying everything he could to kill him. But Prahlad was just thinking how to deliver my father, how to deliver him. As we heard recently, Haridas Thakur was just thinking how to deliver these perpetrators who are trying to kill me. This is the mood of a devotee. He simply feels compassion. So we may are not on that platform, but we can follow such great personalities act according to the direction. In this way, we're also on that boat of liberation to cross over this great ocean of Vaitarani to the other side and reach the spiritual world. And we will be in a position to assist others also to cross that great ocean and to become free of the effects of this material world, birth, death, disease, old age, and all other kinds of sufferings in this material world. Sri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hare Krishna. So if anyone would like to ask any questions, you're most welcome. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Does taking shelter of devotional service remove prarabdha and aprarabdha reactions? Yes, it does. Prarabdha reactions are the reactions we're presently suffering from. And aprarabdha reactions are reactions we have not yet experienced the reactions for. They're in a subtle form. They may be reactions in terms of various physical, happinesses and distresses, or receiving various bodies, etc. According to our past karmas. Aprarabdhas, they're subtle. And they're also manifest here in the forms of desires which we may not be aware of at this point of time. Tendencies which may come up at certain points of our lives, all due to our contact with the material world. And by just degree of taking shelter, we may only be a little bit taking shelter. So we get a little bit of, we could say, freedom from these various effects, but we're still taking some shelter of those material objects. So therefore, we're still experiencing some of the effects of prarabdha and aprarabdha reactions. Now, when one completely takes shelter of the Lord or of devotional service, it may appear that there are still reactions. It seems that the pure devotees are suffering material effects and sometimes distress in the mind, and their body may be getting old, they appear to die. Materially speaking, these things are going on. They're not exactly karmic reactions. When we talk of prarabdha and aprarabdha, we're talking of various karmic reactions. But in the case of the pure devotee, they're not. They're actually the specific hand of the Lord operating. Prabhupada describes it as token reactions. In other words, he gives the example of a fan. When we unplug the fan continues to go around for some time. It takes a while before it stops. And as long as we don't plug it in again, the fan will stop. It's a little matter of time, but it will stop. So similarly, sometimes Prabhupada gives this example, that when one takes full shelter of devotional service, it appears that the material modes of nature are still working on one. But they're not exactly. They're the arrangement of the Lord, specific arrangement of the Lord for the devotee. This is described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, this is the specific arrangement of the Lord to gradually remove in the devotee who's progressing in spiritual life, who's taking shelter of devotional service. There may still be some traces of material desires. There may sometimes be some conditional behavior which doesn't seem to be in line with devotional service. But Krishna makes arrangements to remove the causes of distress, not just the apparent situation on the surface, that may still seem to be there, but he's removing the causes of distress. In other words, convincing us more and more to give up any type of mentality which creates various prarabdha or aprarabdha reactions in this world. That's the hand of the Lord. He wants to free us. He wants us to go back to God in more than we do. And the pure devotees more so. Even if we don't, they're very eager. So they're constantly trying to remind us of what is really good for us. We may not always agree, but they're constantly trying to do that, to release us from this, say, prison of following our conditioned minds all the time. How I feel, this is aprarabdha, which will result in prarabdha. If we follow the desires in the mind all the time, we're just creating our own future karmic reactions. So the idea is that we start to take shelter of Krishna within our hearts, within our minds. And even in distress, even when we make mistakes, even in hopelessness, even whatever situation, Rupa Goswami says, Ashabandha, hope against hope, because what that means is that we can't do anything about it. It's going to happen. It's hope against hope, that we think we can make a plan in this material world and achieve success. We may get some temporary karmic result, but not ultimately. We're defeated. It's hopeless, hope against hope. So that means, what he means to say, Ashabandha, is that the devotee on his own realizes that I cannot overcome prarabdha and aprarabdha reactions. I'll try my best, but on my own I can't. So the devotee surrenders at the lotus feet of the Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. No matter what's happening, we practice now, and then at the time of death or whatever trial we come to, we can be chanting the holy names, or we're surrounded by devotees chanting. Krishna will arrange to protect the devotee from falling back into the lap of Maya. So yes, if we really take shelter of devotional service, we will be freed. And although we may see it looks like we're not, it's just Krishna's hand working there to help us to actually give up the mentality which has caused us in the first place to become entangled in the laws of karma, to be entangled in this material world. Hare Krishna. Next one. Is it this one?
This one.
If we surrender to Krishna and serve him, how come devotees still going on difficult times? Well, I've kind of covered it to some extent. And we may still have attachments to the material world, and Krishna is trying to take those attachments away. If everything was lodi-dodi, as an English word, you won't know what it means. If everything was just fine and we're doing nonsense, then how would you give up nonsense? This is great. I can enjoy material sense gratification and enjoy the happiness of devotional service, same time. No problem. But Krishna, that isn't the goal. The goal of devotional service is to go back to Godhead, not to stay in this limbo state. And Krishna wants us to go back to Godhead. So that suffering or that sometimes misbehavior, whatever it may be seen as, is actually, in a sense, is a form of mercy. It's a lesson to be learned. It's something we're supposed to realize, get some realization from. So we give up this plan, this half mixed devotional service, which, generally speaking, we're in mixed devotional service. We still like to watch a bit of TV sometimes, or watch a movie, or think about nonsense, or talk nonsense, or read nonsense, or do nonsense, eat nonsense. So many things. We may still have offensive mentality. Due to past conditioning, due to the false ego, we still see ourselves in the center, and we offend others. So many different things here. We haven't got that Sambandha Gyan. We're not convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna puts us through these situations to remove the obstacles, to remove that which is keeping us from pure devotional service. So that's his mercy, actually, when these things happen. It's not that we should go out of our way for it, but when they come along, the devotee doesn't try to fight. Tate kumpam susamikshamanam bunjana vatnikita vipakam. Beautiful verse in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada says is the guideline for all devotees. And when a devotee is put in suffering condition, he doesn't complain. Why is God doing this to me? I chanted Hare Krishna for 2 weeks and now I'm suffering. What's going on here? Or whatever. It's not like that. The devotee realizes, and the Prabhupada says, the devotee thinks, I deserve to suffer much more than this for all the things I've done in this material world. Maybe we haven't, maybe we have, but that's the way the devotee feels. He considers this is humility. The devotee, it develops humility in the heart of the devotee, not anger and pride. Humility. And when we become angry and proud, then we get another reaction until we come to our senses and surrender and give up trying to fight against Krishna, fight or try to enjoy this material world. But Krishna's always like that. So the devotee takes shelter of Krishna. He doesn't ask, please, Krishna. He may do in the beginning. We may do. We may sometimes do in any stage because we have no other shelter. But in the highest level, the devotee Prahlad wasn't asking, Krishna, save me from this, save me. He's just chanting Hare Krishna. Krishna automatically saved him because he completely surrendered. So we're not completely surrendered, so we're still getting this kind of up and down kind of experiences. What's the next one? Are the devotional 9 processes equally as powerful? Example, if my taste for chanting is poor, will my reading carry me through, or indeed will reading gradually give me a taste of japa? Yeah, they're all capable of taking. Rupa Goswami says if one takes shelter of any one of these processes, it's enough to go back to Godhead. However, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on several occasions has said of all the processes, the chanting and reading, by the way, is another form of kirtan, Shravanam kirtan also, because we're hearing that which is chanted. So we're hearing the message of Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting, hearing the holy name, hearing the Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavad Gita is also Shravanam. And then we repeat what we hear. Somebody has said it in the first place, kirtan, we're hearing it. Then we repeat what we're hearing. If we're doing service, and then we try to engage others in doing service. All these various lines or limbs of bhakti are purifying. They are purifying. But the most recommended is kirtan. Yes, it does describe that in the Bhagavatam also, that by rendering service to the pure devotee, that the taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna develops. Prabhupada writes this on many occasions. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj also has described the effects of our sadhana as that our taste for chanting will develop in time. So yes, in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada writes there that those who have not yet taken to heart purification of the heart through Shravana Kirtan should engage in various acts, practical devotional service, and gradually the heart will become cleansed. Because when the heart becomes cleansed, one naturally wants to glorify Krishna. If one's a devotee, if one's a Mayavadi, that's another thing. But we're trying to become Krishna conscious. So following a pure devotee and eternal associate of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada, trying to serve him in whatever capacity we can, will naturally evoke the qualities of that association. This is described by Lord Kapila Dev, 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, by associating with such persons who are imbued with all these wonderful qualities means to serve those great devotees, then naturally those qualities in time will gradually evolve within our own consciousness. So, devotee is satatam kirtiyanto mam yatantascha dridavataha. He's always chanting. He can't stop chanting the glories of the Lord. He may be doing other service, or they may be doing other service, but they'll be chanting as well. When Mother Yasoda is churning the butter, she's not mute. You may be mute right now, but she wasn't mute. She was chanting the glories of Krishna all the time, singing about Krishna. You can't stop. When you love somebody, you always want to glorify them, or hear them, or remember them. So yes, it will. So whatever, if you have a taste for hearing Bhagavatam, you're very fortunate. So I wish I had one. Yes, we don't have much taste for chanting. Sometimes when we're in a roaring kirtan, we may feel some elation. But oftentimes we have no taste. We're a little mechanical, but we do it anyway with little faces there. And we have a taste, maybe some practical service. I used to have a great taste for instance, for doing accounts. I would do that for all the temples wherever I would go. And I get pleasure in seeing some service which is beneficial for the temple. Last few weeks ago, we were out in the fields cutting down all the thorn bushes. We still have plenty left if anyone wants to come and join us. We have plenty of service here at New Mayapur, cutting down thorn bushes and then preparing the land to grow food, etc. So there's a great taste there. I did not by eating the thorns. We didn't eat the thorns, but there was a great taste in just this service for Krishna. It's amazing. Out of all kinds of different things, which normally there's not really a taste for. But when we're seeing it in relation with Krishna, there's a great taste there. There's an inner taste. You feel very satisfied, great satisfaction from rendering service. So whatever form it is, it's wonderful. But it normally develops in due course of time. An attraction for hearing and chanting about Krishna. Next one. What is the proper application of taking shelter? Trying to follow the instructions of the spiritual master to one's best capacity, as much as we can. So that may the deep general things you can read in the Nectar of Devotion. There's a whole chapter there on there's practices of devotional service, the general practices of devotion. What is the you can say the field of bhakti, the field of devotion, and then the details are given, generally speaking, by one spiritual master. It means taking shelter of these various instructions, whether they're specific or general, and doing one's best to execute those instructions. That's taking shelter, despite all kinds of obstacles, ups and downs, ins and outs, challenges that may come along in our mind or outside from others. One continues to try to follow those instructions through thick and thin. Srila Prabhupada said this is the secret of success in spiritual life, is to make the spiritual master's instructions one's life and soul. So much as we can, we make that sadhana. Sadhana is the instruction given by our spiritual masters, our Siksha Guru, our Diksha Guru, others, whoever we're working around us in a temple or a community, whatever it may be, those who are guiding us. We try to follow those instructions to our best capacity. That is taking shelter at this stage of the lotus feet of Krishna. Next one. Can we roll down or not? I can't see. We're without our facilitator right now. We don't know how to roll down the page, I'm afraid. Oh dear, lost everything. Here we go.
Yeah, this.
What can be right mood when we have some unwanted attachment and unable to overcome it straight away? I understand that we, and then seems to be nothing after we. I'm not sure if there's something's left out there, Amala. What can be the right mood when we have some unwanted attachment and unable to overcome it straight away? Mood of humility. A mood of realizing that I'm pretty much helpless on my own. And we just take shelter, like a child taking shelter of his mother, crying like a mother. Chant Hare Krishna, and so forth. But that doesn't mean we act fallenly. We may be unable to act the way we'd really like to, but it doesn't mean we act. Therefore, we resign ourselves to being a fool. But we accept the fact that we are fallen. Lord Chaitanya's Patita Pavan, he's the deliverer of the most fallen. But we try our best to do our best. That's all. And it's a feeling of repentance in the heart, a feeling of humility, a feeling of, and we try to inquire from others, serve others, and not that we just resign ourselves to being a sinful person or whatever, or a fool. But we try our best to take shelter of those who can help us. Take shelter of the pure devotees, take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of Krishna, take shelter of devotees. Next one. Sometimes we see that those who are released from prison after a long sentence feel despondent or even try to commit crimes so that they can go back in. As we cultivate spiritual practice, how can we deal with the familiarity that we feel toward our material conditioning and anarthas, though we desire deep down to get past them? In other words, the new level of freedom can feel frightening. This is a very interesting subject, which I can say that to some extent I may have a tiny bit of a lot of experience, not tiny, but I'm trying to make out I'm a devotee. And I have a constant experience of this almost every day. And it's a question which I should be asking. And we know, in one sense, we shouldn't be asking. We should know what the answer is. We shouldn't be like this. But this, unfortunately, is our case. So we do get familiar. We do tend to drift back to the objects of sense gratification. We do tend to become lax in our practice of devotional service. The secret here is association. And association is not just, as we heard the other day, it's not just sitting in a restaurant talking mundane it is with a devotee, or just sitting around together with devotees watching the TV, or talking some grumya katha or whatever it is, criticizing devotees, etc., etc. Is to be with devotees and to, in the association of devotees, to be, let's say, injected, or I can't think of the word, but become absorbed in that bhavoshri chota manobirama, that which will cure us from this bhava road, this tendency to go back into the material ocean, material birth and death. That tendency is there if we know if we're offensive, or we don't associate with devotees, or we're lax in our devotional service, we have bad association. That tendency is always there. More so, we become diverted again. So the secret is proper association. So if we're sincere, we'll seek out association, we'll inquire in that association, we'll pray for that association, we'll be humbled in that situation, and we'll open our hearts to hear and chant about Krishna. Or we'll simply render service to those devotees who are pure, freed of vice. We take guidance and direction. We need association. When we're in this situation, we need association of devotees. Krishna is also there to help us. He's not that we're alone. He knows our situation. So in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, we see that, when an awakening of devotion takes place, a little faith awakens, but the devotee still remains attached to material sense gratification. There's a beautiful verse there. The Lord personally takes hand, and he arranges situations. He arranges things in such a way as to release us from those various obstacles or those various attachments which we may have in this material in due course of time. But the proper situation is to try to seek out that association whereby we'll become purified and have that realization of the futility of diverting our attention to unnecessary objects of sense gratification, or becoming over familiar in our behavior, or even worse, becoming offensive to devotees or to the Lord. Next one. You have great faith in Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is in his spiritual master. How can I develop strong faith? Helps in becoming fearless. Well, I wish I did have that faith. Faith comes by association. Faith is the, you could say, characteristic of the pure soul. It's the characteristic of the soul. In this material, we have faith in material objects. We lose faith when we see failure, when we see things not working the way we expected. But faith remains. Then we put faith in something else. Faith is always there. It may be positive or negative, but it's always there. We have no faith. That's another form of faith. It becomes negative. But the faith is there, part of the soul. And faith isn't just some kind of belief system. It isn't some kind of hope. It is a reality. The word in English is not quite the same as Shraddha. The firm, absolute faith is born on reality. It's born on the absolute realization. So it comes from realization. Fearlessness is like Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj. We can't say he was just faithful, therefore he could preach anything. He was speaking from the absolute plane, a platform which we cannot understand. It's called, from seeing from the spiritual plane. We're not on that platform. And therefore, we have a little doubt, we have a little fear, because we can't see. Our eyes are not yet opened to that spiritual absolute. But when it's on the absolute platform, they're not just, because they think they've got the best or something. They're actually seeing the absolute truth. Tadvidi pranipatina pariprashnena seva upadekshanti tejanam jnananas tatvadarshana. Just try to learn that truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire submissively, render service. Self-realized soul has seen the truth, therefore he can impart that knowledge unto us. So like that, Srila Prabhupada was firmly faithful. If we try to follow his instructions in a detail, we may have different situations, but generally speaking, we try to follow his instructions. Chant the holy name as carefully as we can. This will help us to become pure at heart. As the heart becomes pure, we become more and more, our faith grows, and our freedom from anxiety and fear also simultaneously take place. So take shelter of the holy name of Krishna, take shelter of devotees as much as we can, pure devotees, and try to evoke in the association of devotees pure association by hearing and chanting together, rendering positive service together, And by the mercy of Krishna, we can pray, we can repeat the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, we can repeat the prayers of other great devotees, we can repeat Srila Prabhupada's prayers. This will help us to become stronger and stronger, to follow in their footsteps. So it's just a matter of time. Simultaneous as our attachment to devotional service grows, the attachment to the material world will wane, and the effects of material attachment in the form of fear and anxiety and so on will also wane, and we'll become more and more fearless. But that takes association and time and mercy. Another one, how can Prahlad love all materialistic persons whom he doesn't know? Is it not that for love we need to know the person, and not that the love need to be two-sided? How is it happening inside of the devotee's consciousness? What beautiful meditation. Well, in the material world, there's a sentiment for loving other humans, but it may, as you say, it may not be very broad because we don't know them. And if we met them, we may not love them in the same way. It does take a little bit more than a sentiment. It's knowledge of realization, ultimately, that every living entity is the eternal servant of Krishna, no matter who they are, no matter what condition they're in, even if they hate us, which they say they do. Whatever they are, the devotee sees them as Krishnas. And as we were saying the other day, we're all children of the Lord. He's the Father of all living entities. So it's natural that we want to see all the children reunited with the Father and the Mother. It's only natural. We want that. So when he realizes that, it's not just I am or we are, everyone is. Even the little living entity in a microbe. Every living entity is a servant of Krishna. The devotee is thinking always how to reunite them. Love doesn't just mean a material sentiment like in the material world. That's not how the devotee is thinking necessarily. He may sometimes appear to be like that, how to feed them, how to clothe them. That's not the real love of the devotee. The love of the devotee is he wants every living entity to experience loving exchange with Krishna. That's our natural situation. He wants to awaken that Nityasiddha Krishna praying, that eternal love of God which is in our hearts, in everyone, because he knows without that the living entity is suffering. We may call it happiness or distress, but it is dukkhalayam shashvatam. It is a place of suffering. So the pure devotee, he feels pain to see that. He's para dukkha dukhi. He feels pain to see other living entities suffer. So his love is how to release them from the suffering. And by serving Krishna with your heart and soul, it benefits others. Prabhupada said this automatically. It's like watering the root of a tree. All the leaves will be benefited. They all benefit. We can't go to every living entity. We're not Krishna. We're little teeny jivas. But we can do what we can. But we water the root of the tree with our heart and soul as much as we can for the benefit of all other living entities also, whether we're conscious or not. This is the actual mood of a devotee. It actually is love for all living entities because every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So the devotee is trying to act in a way which will be beneficial for all living entities. But if we're not acting in a way which is beneficial for us, it's not very beneficial for others either. So we have to, charity begins at home. We have to love. Love has to be in our own hearts. Can I have, oh, okay. That's the private one. Hare Krishna. Well, that seems to be the end of the list. Thank you all very, very much. It's wonderful to be with you. And we hope by Krishna's grace, we'll see you all on Wednesday. We'll hear you on Wednesday or something like that. We're going to have a little kirtan now to round up. Wednesday is Nrsimha Chaturdasi. Tomorrow is Janananda Prabhu's Tirobhav. So please take advantage of the association of Janananda Prabhu tomorrow. Wherever you are. I think I'm giving a class somewhere tomorrow, but I don't know. Maybe Rasikananda Prabhu knows. We'll just end up with Kirtan and Hare Krishna. Keep safe. Please, this time, there are many devotees who are suffering from coronavirus. There are millions of people who maybe were suffering also, I believe. And many devotees also. One godbrother, one of my godbrothers, passed away yesterday with coronavirus in Ireland. He was sick with other things too. It wasn't just coronavirus, but that was what pushed it quick. So let us, in the mood of welfare for all living entities, no matter who they are, and especially devotees who are, let's say, undergoing the trial of this test in life right now, whether they're family members or others, for their welfare, so they can have the strength to remember Krishna and be Krishna conscious for these difficulties. And of course, we will also be in that situation. We are in it right now, we just don't realize it, but sometimes these situations occur that we do realize we're in it. And then we really have to take shelter of Krishna. We should be practicing that. So let us try to be in that mood now. Taking shelter of Krishna. Taking shelter of the holy name. With a compassionate heart for all living entities. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Gauranga, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Can you unmute us so we can say Hari Bol? Maybe we are unmuted, I don't know. This one.
Krishna Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Prema.
Thank you for helping me being a devotee.
Hare Krishna.
Still hope that.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Hare Bol.
Prabhupada ki jai. Try to serve Prabhupada by spreading Krishna consciousness in whatever way we can around. Yeah. And take shelter of the holy name. Protect us from falling materially. Protect us from falling
dávala nedávno. No, Karunika. Že máš Facebook.
If it's still a cat, you will finish it. If we can't benefit ourselves, how can we benefit others?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Hare Bol. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Nemáme
Thank you, Guru
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you very
Hare
much, Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Okay.